All right, and we are good to go.
Are we live?
Yep, we are live.
Okay. So, how is the sound?
You're good.
Okay. So, Tansei Mio Kisagansik Kitatamskat Nawal. Hello and welcome everyone to the Indigenous Moose Teachings webinar. Jesse Cardinal Nitsigasun Kikano Chinia. I'm Jesse Cardinal from the Kikano Métis settlement located in the Treaty 6 territory. Welcome to all of the elders tuning in, all of the youth, people from universities, and all of you at home. We're really excited for the webinar today. A little bit about myself. I'm currently serving as the executive director with Keepers of the Water. Keepers of the Water is it's an Indigenous-led organization that was formed in 2006 on the Decho, which is the Mackenzie River. And at that time, there was a declaration made. And basically, in summary, if you want to see the declaration, you can go to our website, keepersofthewater.ca. But in summary, what the declaration says is that water is sacred and we need to work to protect it and to live in harmony with all of creation. And that's also known as natural law. So we have an amazing board of directors with Keepers of the Water. We have Indigenous people from communities. We have university professors. We have a medical doctor, youth representative. One of the board of directors is here with us today, who I'll introduce to you shortly. And our board is both Indigenous and non-Indigenous, and we work together to protect water. I would like to acknowledge our partners for today. Our partners, Keepers of the Water, partnered with Indigenous Climate Action, also known as ICA. Ariel Deranger is the executive director for Indigenous Climate Action. Many of you may know Ariel Deranger. If you don't, you should. She's amazing. She's done so many wonderful. She's been working for decades to bring awareness for Indigenous rights and treaty rights and protecting the land and the water. So we're just sending her love today. And also Lindsay Bassigal, who's with us. She's the communications person with ICA, and she's helped running this show for today. Our other partners for this event are the Indigenous Knowledge Wisdom Centre. We've been working with the Director of Research, James Lamouche. The Indigenous Knowledge Wisdom Centre is located in Treaty 6 in Amiskwachie, Waskaigan, which is also known as Edmonton. And if you want to learn more about them, they have a website. They're working on bringing Indigenous knowledge and education to schools and communities. Finally, our last partner is the Kaniasik Culture Camps. They're a land-based learning camp. They're located in the Minnestickwin Cree Nation in Treaty 6 territory. Kevin Lewis helps run the camp, and he's also one of our presenters today. And so really quickly, I want to talk about why this webinar is happening. As Indigenous people, we are connected to the land, we're connected to the water, we're connected to animals, to berries, everything is connected. If you guys have heard that Cree word, Wakotowin, it means all our relations, we're all connected. And when colonization and residential schools happened, that connection was severed, and we all know the outcomes of that. And so what's happening today is decolonization. So what decolonization is that people are saying, I want to learn my language. I want to learn songs. I want to go to ceremonies. I want to be on the land. I want to learn how to hunt and fish and trap and do all of these things. And so there's a resurgence that's happening. And what a resurgence is, it means like it's a big movement, a movement of people that are doing these things now. And we're seeing that all over in our communities. And especially when COVID hit, that it just, things were ignited, like the shelves were empty. When we went in spring to go get potting soil, there was no potting soil. everyone was buying shells and ammunition. Like so many people were going back to the land, and this resurgence was happening. And as keepers of the water, we've been paying attention to this resurgence, and we've been watching people go back to the land. And one of the things that they're doing is hunting moose. And as an environmental organization, we're seeing the impacts to the land from industry, you know, the clear cutting and clearing out muskeg where the moose live, because the moose are also water beings. And so we've been concerned about this because it's affecting the moose population even before all this, you know, COVID resurgence of the land was happening. And then we realized that there's a gap in knowledge, that it's like, you know, with more people hunting moose, who is the moose? What is this animal? What do we really know about this animal? What is our relation to the animal, and what is the animal in relation to us, and going back to Wastesicoot and our relations. And we realized that we needed to help bring this information to people, which is why we have Jeff Wastesicoot, Kevin Lewis, that they're going to be talking about the moose and sharing information with us. And so with that, I'm going to introduce Cleo Reece, who's our co-moderator for today. Cleo Reece is a Cree woman from the Fort McMurray First Nation, which is located in Treaty 8 territory. And she serves on the board for Keepers of the Water. She's one of our Ogamaus. She's the co-chair on Keepers of the Water. She's an amazing woman. She's just forever young. I was like, oh my gosh, did I call Cleo an elder? Because I don't think of her as like old, but she definitely is an elder. She sits on the board. I said she sits on the board. She's one of the founders for the Tar Sands Healing Walk, if you guys have heard of the Tar Sands Healing Walk. She's also hosted healing gatherings in her own community for many years. She sits on boards. One of the boards she sits on is the Mackenzie River Basin Board, and she also sits on the Treaty 8 Elders Council. And so she's a mother, she's a cookum, she's a mentor, she's just paved the way. It's people like Cleo who have paved the way for younger Indigenous women. She's been out on the front lines for decades, fighting for Indigenous rights, fighting to give us a voice. And so I welcome Cleo today, who's gonna give some opening words and a prayer, and then we're gonna move into our first presenter, Jeff Wastesicoot. And then after Jeff, we'll open the floor for a question or two, and then we're going to move into our second presenter, who is Kevin Lewis. And then we'll also open up the floor for some questions, and we'll see how we're doing for time then. So, hi, Ikse.
Well, thank you so much for those very kind words, Jessie. I'm really happy to be here today. We have some very important messages from Moose in particular. It's our topic today. Keepers of the Water is doing some really great work on bringing out issues of importance to Indigenous people, to all people who live in our watersheds, to the animals and everything. And today, I would like to welcome everyone. Myself, I, like she said, I am a cookum. I'm a grandmother. I live on my First Nations reserve. It's called the Gregoire Lake Reserve. We have a lake here. That's what our reserve is called after. And also we have some really experienced and knowledgeable people who are with us today. So to begin, I would like to give thanks to the Great Spirit who resides in us and all living beings. We send these prayers out to the universe to help us live in harmony with all living things and respect and love one another. For our short time that we have here on Mother Earth, help us see with clear eyes and hear the truth with a clear mind, so that we can live with the wisdom of our ancestors and the teachings that come to us from the water, from the rocks, from the animals. Help us to the path of peace and peaceful transformation so we may protect and keep strong all the gifts that we have been given and love one another, especially ourselves. Hi, hi. And so Keepers of the Water has, as Jesse said, came out of the meeting that they had in Dene country in 2006. And the group that I've been working with came out of that original meeting, and we called ourselves Keepers of the Athabasca Watershed Society, because the people that were involved were more living around the Athabasca River watershed. So we used that name, and we have been doing many, putting on all sorts of different meetings, bringing people together in various ways, participating in the different legal proceedings that involve our land and the water, especially the water. And it is said that the women have the look after the water, which does make sense, since we have babies that are carried in the wombs with water, and they live in that water for the 9 months until they're born. And the moose also are very important because they need water to live in and survive on, and we have to look after the water to make sure our animals are safe, as well as people. I mean, we, like Jesse said, we are all related, and we are responsible for what happens to these animals because of the impact that we have on the land. So with that, I would like to say thank you, and we are going to be listening to our first speaker, Jeff Wastesicoot. He will explain more about who he is and what he does. We also do have his bio, which can be found on the Facebook page, the events page. So if you want to get more information on Jeff, that's where you can find it if you need to. So thank you everyone for listening in, and I'd like to bring on Jeff. Could you?
Can you hear me? I just I just want to give thanks for another day, to be able to share. It is not my knowledge, it belongs to the people. And one of the things that we were taught as young people in entering that era of harvesting and preserving, we were taught a lot about stories in my time. And those stories, the spiritual stories, and I don't wish to refer to them as legends. We call them Atayogewina. Out east they call them Achinogewina, meaning where did these spiritual stories, and they're not myths or legends to our people. And I think that's how we become connected, was through these spiritual stories, how we were connected on the land. And I know that various, the stories come from these four directions, the knowledge keepers that sit in the east, the south, and the west, and the north. They all have a variation and the combination of what is to be taught about respect about the land. When we're talking about this moose, it is from our language. It comes from the language of the Nehewak. People trying to refer to it as Algonquin, but it's Nehew Pigishkwin. We are the only ones that have a plural in that language. When we say moose for a plural, and for singular, and for many we say moosuk. And what this word actually means in our language is it is the closest translation to moosuk talks about forever. Forever, that it will provide for the people of our people. So it's even in our language, and that language is in there, meaning that forever he treats me with kindness every time I visit him. So musak. So the closest translation to the English language is forever. And you hear that in the language of Nietzsche Mus. It does not mean sweetheart. It talks about my forever partner, right? So in discussing the laws of when we were to harvest this, we have two terms in our language, Ntaminowan or Unsaminos. What they talk about is talking about harvesting the small beings such as rabbits and the fowl, of the duck fowl and so forth, in Saminosin, meaning in Taminoan. And there's a term for the four-legged, they refer to it as machiwan. And these two particular terms have laws to them that were set forth by our Creator. And when we openly discuss about laws, any word, because it's an unwritten law to us, because it was implied within our tongue. Any of the words that you hear that end in the word win, that beskots machi win, it has a law to it. And Ntaminawin also has a law to it. So you hear all these laws such as sagituan, gistay tamuin. You hear that constantly, that word win. That refers to the laws. And where these laws on how we were to transition with bimatisuin, the lame term to that is life, how we are going to follow the laws, and how, what we're going to follow. This term bimatisuin talks about how we are going to follow the land, our mother, on what it's going to provide for us, but knowing the know-how of that transfer of knowledge, because we came from the spirit world to come and live in this world, which we know as Mother Arkikawi Nawaski, as Mother Earth. And that had to be a transition for us through ceremony, storytelling, and the actual being connected to the land. Like in the opening statement, when we talk about Wagotuin, it talks about the connection to the land. Wagomituin talks about the bloodline. So when we talk about on the transition of what we were to follow, and everything comes in the cycle, and I know that it comes from the star world, and these star, they came from the star structures. And I just want to briefly put up the star, known as the Big Dipper, and this is how we evolve around these laws when we know it is time for us of harvesting. I don't know if I can get the dipper up there. It is coming up here, and I just want to briefly touch about where these laws and how they transition. When we take a look at the Big Dipper, especially in the summertime when it's spilling, it is time that we understand that the Creator has blessed us in this world as ski. And when we see that, this is when the big ceremonies such as the Sundance Lodges, the powwows and the tea dances, the berry dances occur. And in the fall time, you could see that the dipper is going in a motion of grabbing something, eh? And this is the time it tells us when this particular star structure is in the fall like this, it is time for us to harvest the four-legged animals. And this is why we refer to Kiwetino, a place of home, because it tells us we always look to home on that harvest. And in the winter time, it is upright. There's nothing inside that dipper. That is when we tell the spiritual stories, the round dances happen. And also come springtime is when the fowl, meaning the birds come north. And they follow this, you know, the animals follow these stars too. So we understand that this is a transition, but getting back to that fall where the dipper is, that's when we understand that we must harvest. And over in the summer, it tells us that we must harvest, you know, the medicines, the berries and so forth. So I just wanted to bring that up. There's more in detailed, you know, information because we have such a short time. You could take that off now. Thank you. So within this, within the moose, you know, they go through stages of life too. And these moose are identified under a different name. And same with the bear and also the birds. They all have different names, specific names. The old man told me that when a cow carries a calf inside the belly, this is what they call that calf. And in that term, usipatamachayesis is what they would refer to that, eh? Usipatamachayesis. And I know a lot of these terms you have never heard, a lot of people don't. And that's why we respect that life in there, that we don't take this life of the cow, eh? So when it's born, this is what they call it, omansis. They don't refer to it as a male or a female yet, eh? That's the name that was what was, you know, that the elders talked about. They call it omansis. Once it's a year old, once it reaches the stage of 1 year in the winter time, they refer to that as piponaskos, and it's still, you know, no se piponaskos, nanto yape piponaskos, and that's when they begin to develop these little, you know, the what do you call it? The male, the bull begins to have stubs, but they're not at the mating period yet. In that third year is when they refer to them, and they define them as yapesis, the young bull, and the female would be opishigosu. So again, there's a distinguish of almost like they go through their own stage of rites of passages to become that. It is the fourth year that when they're being able to mate again. So they would refer to that as nu semusa, ago ya peo. And the ones that they would, how we define these ones is two different stages by the bull. And one of the things that we come to understand about them is their antlers, because there's a creation story that is quite lengthy. And they talk about how the moose, that he felt that he had to look after these ones that came from the sky. And it was us, Nehilwak. And he took pity and always looked after them and actually, you know, looked after the people that came from the sky. And those people that came from the sky were us as Nehilwak. And Creator saw this at one time, that you offended for these people too much. I will put a stop to you. So one of the stories that the old people used to tell, if you put your hand here right in the middle, in the center of the bull, you can actually feel a handprint. were created, put a stop to him. And as they developed maturity, the bulls, they would call this Usagutsi Dewo. And what they refer to that Usagutsi Dewo, the one that's able to win the battles to mate. So that's what they refer to. And these ones really, the lower shovels really are pointed and long. That's what they refer to as Usagutsi Dewo. And then again, Nusemusa, that is the one that they refer to as the one that's able to mate. And then the further stage, they go on. After that 6th or 7th year, after the 7th year, that cow is able to carry 2 to 3 calves. When they're at that year 5, they're only able to carry one calf. So after 7 years, they're able to carry three calves. And one of the things is that we want to preserve these moose at that stage. So kichino semusa is, we ask that you don't, we ask our young people not to shoot that one. And how you define a kichino semusa? If you ever look at a young bull, and that's, with a cow, that cow, kichino semusa, without tower, here's the young bull here standing here, and this cow will stand up much bigger and wider. And one of the little videos that and I just want to bring this, the 2 pictures of the moose. I know that I think we were kind of using a Yukon or Alaskan moose, because the moose vary in different provinces. In the province of, this is the most common one, and you see that the little calf there, we call that one Omansis, and this is what we refer to as about the 5th year cow, because it only has one. And the next video that you see, the next picture that's going to come up here. Do we have the next picture?
You mean this one, Jeff?
What's that?
You mean this one?
No, the bull.
Oh, this is the one. Yeah, this one. Yeah, is it not up?
It's not up.
Whoops, here. I gotta change my video real quick. Change the there we go.
Okay, this is what they refer to as, yeah, Bill. I think this is a little overkill, because this is we don't have these kind. There's actually 3 different types that I'm aware of. The feral moose, which is quite small in the Ontario region, and we have the Manitoba moose. But as they go further north, this is what they refer to as Usagutsi Dewo, because this is the one that will win the battle to mate. And again, the bell is not showing here. What they refer to that bell that comes from the beard, some refer to it as a beard, and some refer to it as a bell. But in our language, we call that Utapishagan. And this was we honored this moose in times of when we took this life. In order to preserve that, the bell would be cut off, and it would be hung. And in that time, when we hung that, and the reason why we call it Tapishkagan or Tapishkagan is that when we made sure that another moose would be descended to take its place, that we be Tapishkamagot. So in every part of this moose that we try and utilize each and every part of it, even again. So a lot of these terms have a certain law to them, and you hear that what they call pasameme, when the dry meat, and they would refer to as kakishigewin, is what they would refer to as smoked meat. the term that they use today, but when there was a certain, protocol that had to be in place in order for this to move on. You hear that word again, when, the last term, and it talks about that you had to follow a certain process in order to make a hide, to make that hide. And what we call this, the nose part, we don't call it Wastesicoot. And one of the stories that evolved around here, this is people refer to it as a delicacy, and amongst ceremonial transitions, what this is called in the old language is Oskiwan. And the reason why they call it Oskiwan, that you may benefit from a ceremony that is that they refer to as Oskiwan, that you take something from a ceremony that is spiritual and that you have it with you. So with that, I wish that I could share more. There's songs that evolve around it. That hump on the back that you have seen on that moose represents the lodges, and there are ceremonial lodges out east that they refer to as Waigan, talking about Waginogane. That's where that term comes from. Even the hump on the buffalo and also the bear, they all have this hump. So with that, I've been cut short here. So maybe I had a little video that I wanted to share. It's like 2 minutes. Can we show that? And I shall be done. Is it up there?
요거 이 앞에 이 umay tsagaatyo tapos kagan kaya no tapos kagan kauchi tsagaatik musa ko maagutan yun get not sayak kutak mo sa tape tapos kamagot kaut naman match yun yogo ni suma tapit tagutan yun. Kuma nag-aasaw ma. Tutak niya mamunguman. Ego ay tsagate ko tapos kagan. Kikisteni tsagaso muso. Kawigitom kutak muso. Ute tapi uce pagitnit. Tapi tapos kamagot tu magaw. Kaut naman matsin. Alam ko naman. Yung si Musa tuchi ka, yun naman. Out naman o match yun. Also mochi. Ego ni usagi na. Usagi no may tsika yun. Front leg usagi na. May form. May siyoma. Kaya patsitan yun ngas. Ay ko sipit naman.
Thank you, Jeff. So we have a couple questions. The first question is, can you explain that video for the people who don't speak Cree? What were you saying in there?
I think one of the things is to be able to honor the moose. This is why they refer to this as tapishkagane, that we don't leave this. And one of the things that term tapishkagan but in return, that we need to do our part by honoring this moose, by hanging that bell, so that another one would be given by the Creator to be descended upon us, eh? That's the closest translation.
And then when you and I talked, when I first called you, you were telling me something about when people hang the moose to like there's more to it than just hanging the moose. Is that what you were referring to, or you were talking
No,
about?
I was referring to like, especially the bull. Like a lot of these parts were not left on the ground. Even the bones, if we were not going to use the bones, these bones would be put up on the trees, eh? Nothing stayed on the ground, because that's where the ground, our Mother Earth, provided this for us. So in order to honor that, we hung this. Even the antlers were not thrown, and no parts were left, eh? Even leaving the hide out there and whatnot. And I think one of the greeters that come to us, you know, the very first ones that will arrive at your kill is what they call the gray jay. Some refer to it as whiskey jack. The old language talks about as whiskey cheese is the actual name to that bird, eh? The gray jay. And this was the reason why they call it that, is because this one hung around Wastesicoot, hence the word whiskey cheese. And when they couldn't say that, they translated it into whiskey jack, eh? So again, this was the one that always comes to greet you at your kill, eh?
So we have time for a couple of questions from our viewers. Lindsay, do you have any questions from people? So if you guys have questions, now would be the time to ask Jeff. And again, this is just a very skimming the surface of knowledge. And we're in the time of year, we've had our first snowfall in many communities. So it's a time of year where we start to transfer knowledge and to have storytelling. So we hope that you're sitting and listening and enjoying, but we also encourage you to set up storytelling in your own communities, bring knowledge holders like Jeff, like Kevin, because they have so much more to say. It might seem like a very brief talk that you're getting today because of the time, but really when they tell their creation stories and the knowledge that they have to share, it often takes like, you know, a day or a half a day. So do we have any questions, Lindsay, from the viewers?
No, not that I'm seeing as of right now. Yeah, just a lot of folks very, very grateful for all of your wisdom and your knowledge, Jeff. Somebody asked, how do you recognize a cow's age?
What's that?
How do you recognize a cow's age? And then somebody has also asked, when is the time to stop hunting the moose?
Well, to answer the very first one, sometimes it's very difficult to tell an age until you're up close, even seen from a distance. And I think that it's actually almost the color of it, eh? That the color of the hide begins to darken, where a young cow is actually more brown, eh? And then when you take a look at it, they're almost an odd color to them, eh? A very young moose begins to age when you start seeing the white speckles on it, eh? And that's when you know that one is there. And to also note that the cow begins to have just a little bell after 4 years, eh? It begins to have just a little short growth. And of course, you know, how the males are distinguished is by their antlers. You know, the smaller the antlers, we call them yapes, you know, that's how they are distinguished. And in the winter time, you know, we are still able to hunt the bulls in the winter time, because right now during this time, nuchi tuipisim, and it talks about they have a cycle when they need to come together to reproduce that spirit world, eh? Just like we also, as humans, as Nehewak, we followed a cycle. Now, you know, children are born year round. There was a process for us within that creation story that all children were to be born in the summertime, eh? Just like all the animals, because everything was provided for us, the moss and so forth, the warm waters and the list goes on and on, eh?
I wanted to say something.
Oh, sure.
Hi. Oh, hi. The teachings that you shared about the moose, it's so embedded in the Cree language, and I'm sure in all Indigenous languages that have these teachings that really show respect for this animal and all the different stages of life. I just wanted to bring to people's attention that in the province of British Columbia right now, the provincial government had put a call or sent out, I guess, a policy where people can actually kill the cow and a calf because the caribou is endangered, and they must have felt that this is somehow going to help the caribou survive better. But to me, it's just like just another example of how little understanding and respect for these animals that you know, that is shown by having such a ruling that people can just go out and kill calves and cows until apparently December the 10th. There have been some postings about it. It was pointed out to me by somebody who's keeping track of these things, and I just wondered your take on that, because that's obviously you know, a very drastic step to take.
Yeah, just on one more note there, that one of the things is a lot of moratoriums have been imposed on First Nation lands, and these moratoriums are no hunting for 5 years. I know that it's gone beyond 12 years in Wastesicoot, Manitoba, and one of the things that we got to be cautious about, you know, our inherent right. And this needs to be talked about too, where we impose and further do damage on that imposing, because for 10 years to close it, no hunting, we cannot pass any knowledge on to our young people. So that, you know, we got to very closely look at it from legislative portion part of it. And, you know, there is a time that we can continue talking about the harvesting of moose. I know that in harder times, especially when harder times, we were allowed to take the cows and the calves at a certain time when hard times really hit. That's why at one time we didn't get anything at the trap line. No, the rabbits were scarce, and we were running out of food. So the old man and I, we went and shot a pregnant moose. And what he done was he cut the meat of the mother, and he opened the mouths of these ones the ones that were still in the belly, and he made that offering inside these calves' mouths, eh? And I asked him, why do you do that? It's to show that respect, that we need this at this time. We need to feed our families at this time. Now, with everything that's happening with COVID, you know, we're not, you know, condoling that to go and shoot all the cows now, eh? Be very cautious, and I think that this session that we're having today plays a big part on that transition of where we're being locked down and we're unable to hunt lands. You know, one of the things that is occurring to our young people is that they will see a moose on private land and they're unable to hunt it. And I think that's what we need to look at with our own lands is, you know, that non-Indigenous hunters can't hunt here. You know, we have to look at this very cautiously, eh? And that's what our elders are telling us, eh?
Thank you, Jeff. So we have a lot of questions coming in that we'll have to try and get to after. Somebody did mention a petition, which I think is a great idea because I think it's ridiculous to kill baby moose and cow moose as a solution to save the caribou. And that's why we so desperately need co-management with Indigenous people and Indigenous communities, because we would tell you how to go about dealing with these issues that you're having. So we're going to move on to our next speaker. Thank you, Jeff. Hi. Kevin Lewis, I've known Kevin, you know, as Keepers of the Water, we're starting to want to connect to the land and connect communities to the land. And we came across Kevin Lewis, who is living this. He runs a Cree immersion school and a land-based learning school. He teaches adults. If you want to go learn all kinds of land-based teachings, Kaniasik Camp offers that. And so that's how we met Kevin. We worked together on a women's water gathering this past summer. And he's also plentiful with knowledge. And so welcome, Kevin.
Oh, that's Kahkia Tomskat now, go Nascomawa and Tutita on Jeff Uxi Tagutuya. So I'd like to greet everybody. Go ahead. Mamohtawa Mautugini Ganaya, Nascoma, Gotagisiga, Imigusia, Mamopai, Sisigi, Kitigi, Peak Squatami. So I'd like to thank the creator, thank Jeff, and thank all the organizers first off for allowing us to meet on something pretty special, you know, really special time today. We've got snow on the ground. We should be able to start reading sort of the land a little better from the bottom and see what's out and about. And sometimes this cold weather kicks those old boys into action. So you'll be able to call, right? James will be able to call his big old moose in, or, you know, maybe, I know Jess probably can call something in as well. So, but it's good. It's good to talk about sort of like the moose, but right away, if we have, I don't even know how many people, maybe there's just 6 of us that are tuned in, who knows, I don't have an idea, but I'm in solidarity with those Mi'kmaq fishermen, all the warriors that are here, all the Ugi Chitao Squag, we're in solidarity with those fishermen, because it's Ximanto, they always have to remember that the creator is involved here, and the creator had given us that access to that ocean and all the food that supports us, and to support our families, to give us a future, to give us a life, to give us tools, to give us clothing, to give us all these beautiful things that are out there. And that salt water, there's even a tayokan with Kistis no Isagi to wash his face. And here's distance perfect, actually. I just remembered this. Okay. So I'll tell you a tayokan. And I was looking for this mas papake, right? I was just hearing little bits and pieces of this story. But it had to do with Mstisigag. In Mstisigag was kind of a bully, almost like this is the big giant skunk I'm talking about. And this was the time where they all lived in one lodge. Everybody lived in one lodge. And it was even a time where some of them didn't even have hooves, some of them didn't have claws, some of them didn't have, there's all the way they look right now. They were all brothers, sisters, they all got along. But this sigag was there, this big giant skunk. and he was kind of he was a little bit mean, you know, because like if you ever driven down the road and then all of a sudden in the springtime or in the fall time, you're, oh boy, geez, sigag, there's something. You just drove by a skunk, and then some people will just take a big whiff of that air. Ah, my medicine. So it's a really good medicine that helped Nakwinwag, our relatives, the Soto, Ojibwe, you know, the Chippewa. Those are our same relatives. And if you hang around with them long enough, I'd be able to pick up that language, eh? But this giant sigag, right? This big sigag, he had big skunk glands in the back by Bombay, and that's why nobody could kind of sit right beside him when they were in this one lodge. And he was kind of like a little bit of bully. He would torture a little bit, you know, his fellow I guess his fellow friends and relatives. So it kind of, you know, spray him once in a while, and then kind of spray this one over here once in a while, and then this would kind of torture them a little bit. And then the Wolverine, was the kind of like the elder. Like and this is what I do. I pick up all of these different stories, you know, and like bits and pieces, and what colonization did to us, First Nation, is all those little stories, they're spread out. They're spread out all over the place. And then there was this thing called the pass system that we weren't even allowed to go next door. We weren't even allowed to go visit, you know, if there was a wake and stuff like that. So this is Canada's history. And this spreading, what happened is the collective memory that we have, this ancestral knowledge, this all these stories that we have, they all started spreading over there. And a lot of them, if we don't move fast enough, and this is why I openly talk about these teaching stories, these sacred stories, they're spread open like this, and we need to collect them. We need to document them somehow for our safekeeping, right? And there's mechanisms in there, just like, you know, you have James with the Knowledge and Wisdom Centre there that can database and protect our information, our sacred stories. We have protection rights. We have, you know, ownership, you know. So we have all the OCAP principles that are out there, right? To talk about safely, openly, to talk about a little bit, not too much, but just to let you know that people still know these stories. And this is the time to start telling them. And then, oh, look at this, it's starting to snow a little more here, which is good for us because we can run the dogs here pretty soon. So now, this Tigag was spraying everybody, was being kind of mean, little bully. And then once in a while, spray this other animal. And then Kistisno turned himself, like put on a Wolverine fur, okay? Wolverine, sihk. And then he was sitting by the fire, and then he was just trying to, you know, just wanting to be around all the other beings that were there. And then this big sigag kind of looks at this Wolverine, and this Wolverine, you know, the way our older brother was, he was almost like he was the life of the party. He was a showman, and he was like the celebrity of the time, right? Because he was a two-legged. This two-legged was he was like he was kind of like the celebrity. If we had somebody that was on TV or a movie star that came, that you knew was coming here, everybody would get ready. Everybody would get all dressed up. You know, look at me, I put on this thing, right? Just getting fancier because there's important people that are showing up. So that's what they would do. And so this guy comes, and that was his persona. He was just happy, you know, he was happy all the time, and he danced his way through life. He bimsumot, kapimatsit, you know, asisimo, nikansimo, wiksimo, tagaksimo, you know, all these dances that we have, and all these songs that we have. He gave us a lot of those teachings, right? And then somehow, some way, because of colonization again, with us spreading out this information right across the like coast to coast to coast to coast, right? Like these pockets of stories are all over the place. They're even down in the States, you know, down in California, down towards Florida. We have relatives that sound like us, you know. The Cherokee, you know, the Cree word for them is Kanihiawistik, right? The ones that almost speak like us, you can understand them, right? That's way the heck down south. And then the Kikapchik, Kickapoo sound like us. They talk like us, the Fox down there. So we have relatives down in the States. But then what's cool too is when you start looking at these stories and listening to them, all those stories go all the way to the East Coast, right where I said with the Mi'kmaq, right? The Mi'kmaq, we stand in solidarity with them, like I said. And because we just finished, my uncle just finished a lodge called Ugichitaugamik, right? Ugichitaugamik has an Eastern door. We sing songs of celebration there. We sing songs of our relatives that, because we came from the East, and then we know those songs, those relatives, and that moose is involved in there, okay? So anyway, going back to this giant skunko, Wastesicoot, so yeah, I'm kind of getting annoyed of this wolverine, but it's actually and he's kind of like, oh yes, I can do the shaking lodge. I'm the one that brought this ceremony, and I'm the most powerful. I'm an old man. I'm the oldest out of, you know. He was just talking on, and then this big sihk kind of goes, wow, I'm gonna show this guy now. Sprays him a little bit, eh? just to kind of humble him a little bit. So anyway, the Wolverine, he kind of gets back and he's like, oh geez, why did you do that? And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just excuse me, you know, but he did it for a purpose. And then they got a little meeting together, right, aside from the sihk, and they had this little meeting, and they were like, well, you know, this guy's a bully, kind of don't want to hang out with him anymore, plus he stinks and he's getting worse with his skunk gland. Could we do something with this guy? Like, could we move out of here and just leave him, ditch him, right? So they were on kakyo. They all amaga spuipitsa na no tia asniwa cheese, right? So towards the mountains, that's where we're gonna go. Okay, don't tell the skunk. So what the skunk was already real powerful, I say. So all of a sudden, they did a strategy. They got together, and then they knew where the glands were, and then they gave it to the Wolverine to kind of shut them. Okay, so he can't use them, but if they're open, then he has the power to spray everybody. And then his spray at that time was so powerful, he could kill. Like he can kill. That's how powerful this guy was. So everyone was not messing around. Everything just had to be perfect. So that day came, and then all of a sudden he turned around, and then he kind of felt something's off a little bit here. And then he turned around on the Wolverine like he was gonna spray. Boy, the Wolverine grabbed that, pinched the back there where that spray was, and didn't let go. Now the Wolverine's real tough. It's really, really strong, this thing. And didn't let go. And then all the little ones, all the birds, all the animals, pushed this big sihk, and this Wolverine didn't let go, okay, in the back. Because if he let go, it would have been death to all of them, because this big sihk was just gonna like kill everybody, right? So they pushed him down, pinned him down, and then they had to quickly like singe him and burn him and cut him up, okay? And then by the time he let him go, when it was safe, he let go. That smell of where he grabbed and pinched those skunk glands, he was talking last minute, like before he ran to the ocean, okay? And the ocean at that time was clean. It was like a good water. It was. And then so So supposedly, as he was running, he's like, chop that guy in little pieces, chop him up. And then he was running towards the ocean, which is really good to drink. And he started washing his mouth and started washing himself. And then I guess that's why the ocean is not really too safe to drink right now, right? You have to go inwards because that's all polluted from that the power. It's not, I wouldn't say polluted, but just tinged with a little bit of that sihk juice. So and then they eventually ended up going towards the mountains, right? And then the heat was the little sihk, the one that's all over now. That's where he comes from. So he's that was his ancestor that got shot, right? And that got killed and spread around and all over. So now that's medicine, right? So all these atayukan are like that, and they're they're all kind of like chronological. And then you'll hear another one that'll fit in here, and then another relative will add to that. Now, this Muswa was also involved in the flood story, okay? So the flood story, and of course, it was kind of like our brother that, it was him that did it. But check this out, okay? So you're listening to these stories, okay? And you have a bow, a 9-year-old boy that can make one of these guys, okay? This is a birch bow, okay? You have one, this is a little boy that made this year, all right? And then this bow, this arrow, this was exactly how my Namusumpan made my first arrows for me. He put a little bullet at the end and it was flat, so I could just learn how to shoot this bow. And my boy, he made this bow. But if you look a little closer, okay, you'll see this birch tree was shown to us by Mayakan. Mayakan was the top hunter. That's the top hunter. So such a top hunter that the moose were afraid of him, the beaver were afraid of him, all the animals were afraid of them. But we needed those animals, we needed plants, we needed these things to make this fiber right here, okay? So this bowstring, right? Now it goes into all these different, shoots off all over the place, but we need to keep these alive because of the stories, but also, you work on this thing and then all of a sudden you have a product that you can actually fling, right? And now this, where did it go? Bimnachkwan, yeah. So this whole thing is based around moose, right? So this is fiber, sinew, all right? And we're also collecting always the all the material. What happened here, and this is Ngatsamunota, what was happening was we'd go out hunting, and then all of a sudden you'd see a hide way in the bush. There would no meat, no bones, but they would leave the hide, right? And then sooner or later, you're going around and all of a sudden the birds give it away and they're like, oh, somebody else shot a moose. So you go over there, see what's up, little bit of guts, but again, the hide. So we're like, what's going on? We got to do something with this product, right? There's got to be something done about this product. Pagikin, there's Paginukion, right? There's all this way of making tan hides like this, right? I'm sitting on a moose hide right now that's smoked, right? And this is what we studied. And if you want to hammer a drum, if you want to just hammer, a drum, I would say maybe go try making rawhide, or even go a little further and make something like out of this to something beautiful like this, right? Look at that, the beadwork. These are moose hide gloves. And then that fur, we gotta revive that trapping. Our trappers are staying idle right now. We need to make this cool again. And now I run dogs, minus 30, minus 25. I'm out there with the wind chill. I like being out there, but the only way I survive and keep these fingers the way they are is I put on these beaver mitts and I put on this moose. That's the only way that it makes sense, and it's actually enjoyable. Now, as Canadians now, okay, in Canada, we have 6 months of winter. So are we gonna stay inside all winter, right? Are you gonna be happy? Are we gonna be mentally doing well, you know, staying indoors that entire time? Or can we make some of these things, right? Can you start learning how to bead and then actually going outside and doing a little bit of work, or, you know, going for a walk and enjoying these, right? And these act like protection too. You know, Samoaki, meaning like they're kind of like that, the cape of protectors. And these beads, what they also represent, the flowers, right? And you can even look at flowers designs and you'll be like, I know where that person's from. That one's from La Loche, or that one's from Patchnak, or that one's from Ministiquin there. That's the type of, you know, that color. And then what these represent as well is medicine, right? So people are shooing us off their land by picking berries or roots or medicines or, you know, willows. You just show them these patterns, right? The mix sagoke, migis is a shell. And then we sing about this migis in some of our ceremonies, right? Sapuhtawan is one where we sing about this. And then now going down to the tools, all right? Here's a buddy of mine, Brian Bird. He made this one. And then, so Miki one, right? So you see the teeth on there, a little bit of leather on there, and then you hold it down, leverage, and then you matehin, you mikiptaman, or you matehin. Here's a matehin. Now this is another buddy of mine, and my cousin made these ones. These are just beautiful, but they're doing matehana, and they're hardening steel, and these are old, these are scrapers, right? So these are the fleshers, these are the scrapers. And what type of wood? Birch tree again, right? And these are the ones that you work on, those hides. You soften them, and then you use the brains. You need the brains. And then there's words like kapastaso, right? Kapastaso, meaning that beautiful marrow that's in the middle of these bones. Oh, that's so good. Just salivating, just thinking about it, making bannock, all the different things that you can mix in there. Right? These, you know, even the meat, even food sovereignty comes into mind, where we start eating better. We start making it more palatable. We had a guy named Scott Eiserhoff, who's an Indigenous, big shout out to him, Indigenous chef. We need more Indigenous chefs to make our food just delicious. All right, so I want, like, we need to create these people that'll make these foods like, it's like, what? This is a moose burger? It can't be a moose burger. Or making those inner organs just something you can't put down. You know, it's like, this can't be a moose kidney. West, right? And they make them so delicious that they're unique, but these are old recipes, maybe new recipes that they create, right? And like this summer, we paddled 200 kilometers in a birch bark canoe, right? And we're paddling, and then James paddled by himself, by the way. Holy smokes, I don't know if I could do that, but so he's got moose guns, that guy, boy. So we're paddling, and we start seeing tracks. So now we're starting to take accountability of, you know, moose population. We need to sustain our moose. I've been in the places where they can't shoot moose, and my heart goes out, and I'm like, and at home here, why we went down this crazy path, why we went down was because we were saying, boy, these, and we were pointing like this, look. And I was having this discussion with my kukumo. I was going, geez, these kids, they're just shooting. It's so easy to shoot. And I'm pointing and I'm pointing. And then she goes, yeah, we just you're pointing, it's easy to point, but there's three pointing right back at you. Oh, so So that humble pie tasted really good, and coming from her, so 3 fingers were pointing right back at me. You know, instead of blaming, we got to do something about it, right? That's where the genesis, or that's where the mandate came from, was from our elders. And like, we have elders that are standing right now at our band office trying to figure out, okay, what's our next move, you know? And like, my prayers and my, you know, listening to our elders as knowledge keepers, as getting direction. And when I'm in trouble, or when I'm feeling, you know, mentally tired, you start kind of, that's who I run to. I don't run anywhere else. I'll go to my elders. I'm like, okay, I got a situation here. Can you tell me, you know? And we have our medicines, we have our smudges, we have our teas, we have such good stuff. We're so rich, and especially around the idea of moose, right? So now I'm gonna pull out my my trumpet, and I have a couple of slides here, okay? So any guesses? This is how I'm gonna call a moose from where Jeff is sitting right now. I'm gonna call that moose over this way, okay? So this one's kind of a little bit of sexy call, okay? All right. Okay, you hear that one? All right. So this one's a bull. All right. So look at this. Look at how big this one is. So this one's going like probably Alaska. That's how big this moose call is. Look at this. Okay, this is a bull. Right? So that's a younger bull, that one. Okay, so even things like this on how to make these things, right? Even the moose call is quite the thing. And all of us have these different designs. This one was a buddy of mine there in New York, and I made this one, and we're like messing around, and they're like, why does it have to be that big? Like, is there something you want to tell us, you know? But like, they don't have to be very, very big. They've got to, you know, about that big is good enough. And then also little tricks, hang out with those old school hunters, all right? Old school hunters. When I'm old, I want to be that old man that holds that leg, and then just holding that leg for the skinners, and I just want to tell stories. That's what I want to do, okay? So if I keep it up and I don't step on any toes, or I'm just trying to get as many stories as I can, but also share those teachings with a good heart, right? All those things that Jeff had said, those are amazing things. And that bull, umumatayo, and this is one cool thing my dad said to me one time. And I've tried as a little boy, I hardly talk about a lot of my hunting stories, but we used to hunt all over the place here, and we still do, but now it's like this other generation that's like this, their first time hunters now, right? And the first hunt, if you're ever gonna shoot something or get something, even bow hunting has to come up again, right? We've got to start doing like that. But ganagwatso is where the work starts happening. That's the hard work. That's the hard part. So, and then my dad, he cuts off that umumatayo, that bell, and he says, nah, so I take it, I'm like, okay, and I put it down. And then so after a while, you know, not right away, don't ask right away, it's like, why? So I go, and then he said, he says, and I'm like, oh, wow. So the translation is, it's worth one story. So I'm like, one story, geez. And then again, you're not gonna ask what? I don't understand. You're talking like Yoda. I don't understand you, Dad. And then so anyway, I start asking other people, and I start asking him again. And then sooner or later, he unfolds this beautiful story. So we have just to add to Jeff's story. There's and you know, I named Ukihtaugamic earlier. There's a warrior man, and this is like all due respect, smudged, and you know, Nyanims was his name. Nyanims raised these warriors called Ugihtaug and Ugihtausquag. And then they made this ugi taugamik. Beautiful. And anyways, this moose was not really nice to us in the past. You know, it was almost kind of like that skunk, kind of like a bully. And would run over us, would run. Because this come, you know, if there was teepees or lodges there, whatever they were, they would come and just blow us over. And then pretty soon that Nyanims was sent there, and he said, you got to go deal with that moose, because that moose is just going to kill us, and go stick up for those guys. So he went over there. And then Mama Moosescoot that Jeff was talking about, Moosescoot, he held it, and that bull was charging him, held it in the middle of the nose, and then put it in that handprint there, right? And held him dead, stopped him dead in his tracks. And then from there he said, right? If you just start treating us right, and we'll need you in the future. We will need you in the future, and we'll respect you. So we'll hang that so that's the lead soup. This takes long years, like a lot of years to get me just that little bits of little stories from all these old men, old women. So we have to, like, with all due respect, I know there's lots of people all over the place there, and sometimes we can only talk to them virtually, but like, I hope that I don't say too much online like this, but just to give you little bits and pieces of how rich we are, just to give you an idea, just like an intro. But like, we have lots of knowledge holders, we have lots of singers, we have lots of great, beautiful guhums, lots of people, like, you know, we have access to that, but we need to go back to those teachings to make sure that population, that moose population is at a healthy state, right? And when we lose sight of that moose, that four-legged, when we start going, like, looking one way, we jeopardize everything on the world. But when we go back to the four-leggeds and we start looking and focusing on how that relationship is, because these are old treaties that we have. These are treaties. We have treaties with other two-leggeds, but we have treaties with these other flyers, four-leggeds, moose is one of them, buffalo, bear, all these different things. We have treaties with them. And those are the laws that Jeff was talking about earlier, and we need to not forget them, but relearn them. Go back to our knowledge holders and see how you can create maybe, like, to use today's words, policies, but how do you implement those good policies? You know, how do you use Canadian law and traditional law, hereditary chieftainship with contemporary chieftainships, right? So we have lots of work to do. So that's why it takes everybody, and this is why it was so easy for me to say, yes, I'll go talk a little bit about what we do at Ganyasa, but it's a little more, right? It's about identity. It's about reconciliation, bridge building, and listening to our stories and respecting our stories, and not talking about our family like being tricksters or myths or things that are too crazy to be true. No, these are our stories, you know, and these are our relationships here. So I'm glad that you'd opened up, you know, something like this for us to be heard finally, you know. Let's not be shy of who we are, right? So now, and I'm not sure how many minutes I have. I took my glasses off, and you gotta just kind of. Oh, okay. Yeah, see it. I'm good.
Oh, that's awesome. We could just listen all day, but as we said, this is just skimming the surface, and to bring these people to your communities. So we're just gonna take time for a couple quick questions. Hi, Kevin, for everything. That was, I love the moose call. Maybe you can teach us, run a moose calling camp. But Jeff, I have a question for you about smoking the moose hide. Why do we smoke the moose hide?
A lot of it, I think the question that has always pondered many people, why we actually smoke the hide. And for once, it smells good, eh? It smells good, but we're just not after the smell. And it refers back to that protection, eh? You know, because we use smudges to kanati soage kanuna kasika na when we smudge, we actually work with this energy, what they refer to as ishiwene. So a lot of our people used to smoke these hides to protect, eh? And one of the things that I come to understand about our own history, from even smallpox and so forth, the viruses that were airborne, a lot of these things wouldn't reflect to the skin because of that energy cannot stick and survive on smoke hide, eh? And it was a form of a protection. Even our moccasins were smoked so that we did not step on any negative energy out there. And it was a form of protection. If I were to actually, one of the terms that I like to use is, if I was in full jacket, pants, moccasins, gloves like that, and a hat, the only area would be affected would be here. That would be the opening. All this other area would not, would be protected by certain energy. Even airborne diseases would not stick here, eh? So it was a form of protection, spiritual protection to our people. And that's the reason why there was a value on these animals. And they would smoke deer, caribou, elk, and all these things, and we use them as clothing. Today, we have transitioned away from there. I today began to go back to wearing moccasins and so forth, eh? So that's the best scenario that I can give you. That's the reason why we have smoked hide, just like putting on smudge, eh? We call that miyaga sigan. And to further define that miyaga sigan, because that's why we smoke that hide, it's a deterrent. When you're unprotected, this energy is composed of molecules, protons and whatnot, and they actually embed in your skin, which creates a negative energy to you. So in order to maintain that positive energy, we would smoke these hides and really be protected throughout, eh? So I hope that answers your question.
It does, thank you. We have time for a couple more questions, and then I'm gonna have Cleo do the closing. Do we have any other questions, Lindsay, coming from the audience or the viewers today?
Some that were flagged earlier, maybe a good one that might be relatively quick potentially. What kind of offerings are given to the moose? So maybe not only within your context, but maybe in different communities that you're aware of.
I think one of the things that we do when we do the offerings, like they differ from region to region, eh? One of the offerings that we do is actually comes from the moose itself, us by taking that life. And we also offer, like, to those other spirits, leaving, the parts. One of the things that we always acknowledge at this time is that raven, that we always leave a piece of meat for them. And those were the offerings that were made from this kill, eh? And generally, today, right now, a lot of people just make the tobacco offerings, eh? And in this process, when we take a life such as a moose, we give thanks right there on the spot. They would say, just a prayer. There's nothing set in stone. It's how you work from the heart. And if you work from here, you can never go wrong, eh, with those offerings.
And Kevin, do you have any closing comments that you'd like to say to share for people that are watching today?
Yeah, I would just, I'd probably just like to say that thank you for giving this opportunity, but also to kick everybody into gear, to start talking about like food security, food sovereignty, and taking into account the importance of healthy eating, moving. It's a lot of work when you're hunting. It's a lot of work. Like just the initial harvest, followed by taking it out and then processing it yourself. So you're doing the processing, and you're actually doing also, you know, you're examining the food. Is the liver, is it good? You know, all you're just doing the inspection. You're acting as an inspector. You're also like, the complexity can go on and on. Like some of these hunters, these men, these women, they know where to cut on the joint. So you don't even need a saw or a, you know, anything like that. You just need a mukumana, a knife. And so like to get it to that level, and then also how to skin that moose is really important as well, for the drum makers, for the hide tanners, and for the, like even the bones, even this, where to get this one off of which animal is the best, where these little teeth don't break off, right? Those little tricks took us lots of years to figure out, but the knowledge is out there. And some way, somehow, we have to pull it together. KTC, Education Authority in Kitaskino, up in northern Alberta, they have an awesome app. And like Jeff was going through those different years, you know, you have Mansis, Nichanu, all these Pipunaskus, Arigatsawas, you know, so all these different names are even in there, and give you hints on how to get them. They have bears, they have like good apps like that. And then there's also apps that you can, if you're harvesting, start making yourself a consultation office, you know.
Yeah, it's good you say that. So what Kevin was talking about is a language app. It's called the KTC Elders Language App, I think, and it's from Treaty 8. And one of the questions we also had was, how can we learn more about, you know, managing the harvesting of moose and things like that? If you contact the Treaty 8 office in Alberta, Kevin Akamanchi, he's the director of livelihood, they've actually made pamphlets on kind of teachings of when to harvest moose, what kind of moose to harvest. So they're a good resource as well. And I just think of, you know, we need to continue having discussions like this, because in some communities, they are looking at the managing of moose. You know, some communities are putting in short-term moratoriums. We need to look at Indigenous protected areas. What is an Indigenous protected area? Putting in a place where no industry is allowed, nothing is allowed, where our wildlife could just live and reproduce, and so that they're there for future generations. And we need to meet in a bigger way, because communities are doing this and individually, but we need to bring all this information together so that we can look at how we're managing our moose. So with that, I'm gonna pass it on to Cleo and have her close out our presentation. Thank you everybody for attending today, and watch for us. We have more webinars coming up. The next one we have is Moose Teachings, which we're partnering with Indigenous Knowledge Wisdom Centre as well. So hi.
Yes, thank you, Jesse, and I'd like to thank you and Lindsay for the work putting this on, and to James for his participation and helping this get on the great web, and also to our presenters, Jeff Wastesicoot and Kevin Lewis. You guys are so important with all your knowledge and all your information, and I think it's good that the showing your sense of humor as we go along, that it's so important to our people. Like humor is so important. And it's and you bring that in there, and this is great. And also how you bring the language. I just love the way you weave in your languages to the stories, and also showing us how important our languages are to us as our identity of who we are. Like, it's so important that we shouldn't be losing our languages, and I really want to stress that this has got to be carried on and brought back and used. So thank you for all your knowledge and what you've done. And all the people out there, I'm so happy all of you could join us, and I hope you continue to come back when we have other things such as this. The other thing that I just wanted to say is that the moose is so important to us, especially the people of the boreal forest where we live. And it's the biggest animal, you know, so it has huge, like a lot of meat. So it's a very important source of food. It's important that we really respect the animal. You don't waste any part of it. Look after the habitat so that it has a place to live and it's safe. Look after our cows and the calves. Hunt only for food, and also give thanks, and thank you all. High five. Bye now.
All right, I just stopped the live stream, just so everyone knows.
That was awesome.
Okay.
That was really good. I hope this is recorded so that I can look back, because there's some of the things Jeff and Kevin were saying. I want to make sure I have it all there in my head.
Yeah, it'll be available as it'll come up as a video on the ICA page for sure. And then I can also give everyone else the link too, just if you want to post it anywhere for with any of your organizations. And I can also put it on the ICA or ICA YouTube in the next, I'll do it in the next week or so.
Yeah, if you could do that.
Yeah.
When you post the video, are you able to put our logos on, or, well, I guess you don't put them on, but.
I'll have to check and see if I can. I don't think I can do the one that's on Facebook, but I think when I put it on YouTube, I would be able to.
And then James, you said that you guys may be looking at making an edited video.
Yeah, we're going to look at doing short snippets of it and then posting that to the virtual library as well as one of the resources that we put on there. But you guys will see whatever we edit before we put it on our site.
Okay. So because there will be parts, like, could you put our logos on those videos as a partner?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So I'll be in touch with you guys for the bear teachings. And I think it was like awesome. Everybody was so excited. I was watching all the Facebook comments and everybody was just like loving it. So went really well.
Right on.
Yeah. So have a good day and we'll be in touch with you all soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Nice
you.
to see you.
Bye.
Hey.
Bye.